Let me tell you something strange about people. Sometimes the ones who smile at you the most are the ones already planning to ruin you behind closed doors. I learned that the hard way. I spent 5 years working under my boss, Rachel. She was charming, smart, always knew the right words to say in meetings, but deep down something about her smile never felt quite real. I never thought much of it until the day she called me into her office, looked me straight in the eye, and fired me. Just like that. No reason, no explanation, just a tight smile and a sentence that felt rehearsed. We've decided to move in a different direction. That's corporate speak for you're gone, and you'll never know why. I walked out of that office with a cardboard box and 1,000 questions. I kept asking myself, what did I do wrong? Was it my performance? My attitude? Did I trust the wrong people? For 2 days, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking back through every moment, every project, every late night I stayed just to make things run smoother for her. And then I remembered something small, barely a whisper. A few weeks before I was let go, one of the interns made a strange comment. We were talking about Rachel's weekend trip and she said, well, you know how she gets when she's traveling with James? I laughed it off. James was on the board, married, way above her pay grade. But now, after the way she got rid of me, that little comment started to sound very different. So I started connecting dots, emails, meetings, expense reports. And then I remembered a tiny USB drive she left on my desk one morning by accident. I never opened it until now, and what I found inside, let's just say it explained everything. My firing, the silence, the sudden shift in how people treated me. And I knew right then this wasn't just about me losing my job. This was about something much bigger, something Rachel and James never thought anyone would dare uncover. But I wasn't just anyone. Not anymore. And this story, it's not over yet. I didn't go to war right away. That's not who I am. I'm not some revenge junkie, and I've never sued anyone in my life. But when someone burns your house down and leaves you in the ashes with no explanation, you either rebuild quietly or you start digging through the wreckage to find out who lit the match. I chose the second. The first thing I did was copy the contents of that USB drive. Twice. I didn't even know what half of it meant yet, but I knew enough to be dangerous. There were emails between Rachel and James coded, but not subtle. Hotel bookings disguised as off-site strategy sessions. Restaurant bills charged to the company card at places that weren't even in the same city as our headquarters. Then there were the receipts, dozens of them. All filtered through marketing budgets, signed off by Rachel. But the part that made my stomach turn, there were messages. Late night ones. Flirty, intimate, way beyond professional. And worse, some of them were from her work email. That meant it was all traceable. It wasn't just a private affair, it was an abuse of company resources. And I realized in that moment, if they were willing to fire me just to protect that secret, what else had they done to other people? I started asking around, quietly. Former coworkers, contractors, even interns who'd left without a word. That's when I found Lauren. She had been in the finance department. Let go 3 months earlier. Just like mental warning, no explanation. When I told her my story, there was a long silence on the phone. Then she said, "They did it to you too?" That's when I knew I wasn't crazy. There was a pattern. One by one, people who'd stumbled too close to the truth were being removed, silenced, erased. But now I had a file and a witness. So I took it all to an attorney, a woman named Claire, sharp as a blade and twice as dangerous. I was nervous walking into her office, holding that little USB like it was a live grenade. But when she finished reading the emails and flipping through the receipts, she looked up at me with this quiet fire in her eyes and said, "They're going to regret this." Over the next few weeks, Claire built a case. She filed a wrongful termination claim on my behalf, but that was just the surface. The real weapon was the whistleblower protection clause. Because I had raised concerns internally, and because the file showed misuse of company funds, I was legally protected from retaliation. And retaliation is exactly what that firing was. I never knew how slow time could move until I was waiting for a court date. Every day felt like a year, but I didn't waste it. I documented everything. Every Slack message, every email I could recover. I even wrote out my own timeline, hour by hour, day by day, of how things had played out. I wanted the judge to see not just what happened, but why it mattered. Then came the media. One of Claire's colleagues knew a local journalist who covered corporate ethics and whistleblower stories. We sent over redacted versions of the emails and documents, just enough to raise eyebrows. Within a week, the journalist published a headline, "Tech executive fired after flagging expense irregularities, internal emails suggest deeper scandal." That's when everything changed. People inside the company started talking, leaking, sending us things anonymously. One night, I received a plain manila envelope on my doorstep. No name, no return address. Inside were internal memo zones I'd never seen where Rachel and James discussed removing problem employees quietly to avoid reputational harm. It was all in writing. I sat at my kitchen table that night, holding those papers in my hands, and realized I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. I was fighting for every single person they trampled along the way. I didn't sleep much after that. My brain was on fire, my heart pounding every time I saw Rachel's name on a document, but somewhere deep down I also felt a sense of calm, because the truth was no longer hidden, and soon it was going to be dragged into the light. One court date, one room, one judge, and the two people who thought they were untouchable, Rachel and James, were going to have to answer for what they did, and I was ready. Courtrooms are strange places. On television, they look glamorous, shiny floors, confident lawyers, a room full of gasps and dramatic objections. In real life, it's quieter, slower. Every second feels heavy, like the air itself is watching you. When I stepped into that courtroom, I wasn't the same man who had been fired a few months earlier. Back then, I was confused, hurt, lost. But now, I had something stronger than revenge. I had the truth. Rachel and James sat across the room from me, both dressed like they were on some kind of magazine cover. Rachel barely looked in my direction. James didn't even blink. Their lawyer, slick and overly confident, opened with the usual line, "This is a disgruntled former employee seeking attention." But our lawyer, Claire, just smiled. And then she began. She laid out the timeline with precision, the dates of my employment, the performance reviews that were always above average, the fact that I was put in charge of auditing expenses only weeks before my sudden termination. Then came the documents. She projected the receipts, the emails, the hotel invoices, all with my name nowhere near them. And then she dropped the bomb, a printed email thread between Rachel and James, with highlighted sections where they jokingly referred to one of their weekend getaways as strategic bonding. The judge leaned forward. That was the moment I saw the shift. The room got quieter. Rachel's lawyer objected, tried to call it irrelevant, personal, out of scope. But Claire stood firm. "This isn't about their relationship," she said calmly. "It's about how company money was used to fund ITAN, how employees who got too close were removed." Then she called me to the stand. My palms were sweating, but my voice didn't shake. I told the story the way it happened, not to perform, just to speak the truth. I talked about the day I was fired, the USB drive, the long nights connecting the dots, the envelope on my doorstep, and most importantly, the fear of speaking up, the fear of being crushed by people in power who thought they were too important to be questioned. When I was done, there was silence, not dramatic, not performative, just heavy, real. That kind of silence you only hear when people know what they've just heard actually matters. Rachel was called up next. She denied everything. She blamed the accounting department, claimed the emails were taken out of context. But the judge wasn't buying it. The final nail came from Lauren. She testified next. She confirmed her termination had followed a flagged reimbursement report tone involving the same hotel, the same names, the same pattern. That's when I saw it. The first crack in Rachel's armor. Her hands were shaking. She kept adjusting her blazer, avoiding eye contact. James, meanwhile, looked like a man who realized his seat at the top wasn't as secure as he thought. The judge recessed the session. 2 weeks later, the verdict came in. The company was ordered to pay damages for wrongful termination, retaliation, and breach of whistleblower protections. But that wasn't the best part. What came next made everything worth it. Within days, the company's board launched a formal investigation. HR leadership was replaced. Rachel resigned for personal reasons. James, He vanished from the public eye. No press conference, no apology, just gone. And me? I started over. I didn't take a victory lap. I didn't post anything on LinkedIn. I just quietly moved on. But I never forgot what I learned in that courtroom. Power doesn't protect the truth. People do. People like Claire, people like Lauren, people like me who get knocked down but stand back up with a fire they didn't know they had. And as for Rachel and James, I don't know where they are now. I don't really care. Because at the end of the day, they tried to erase me. But they forgot one thing. I kept the receipts. So let me ask you, what would you do if your boss fired you for no reason, only for you to find out they were hiding a scandal that could take down the entire company? Would you stay quiet? Or would you speak up even if it meant going to war?